Today's conversation goes to a place a lot of us live but rarely talk about out loud. Caregiving that isn't chosen. It's thrust on you. Yes, you have a career that you chose as a caregiver, but when you have to do it at home too, it's a whole new story. It's a whole new weight of stress. My guest is Lisa Ackland Carriere, founder and director of The Writing Well, a 20-year-old veteran college English instructor and writer for Global Ministries, and the voice behind The Daily Calling on Substack. But today, Lisa isn't here as a writing coach. She's here as a wife, a mother, and a woman who walked through years of compounding loss, a son with developmental and learning challenges, a marriage under strain, her mother's sudden death, her brother's terminal diagnosis, and then her husband's own cancer diagnosis, literally all stacked, one on top of the other. We're talking about compassion fatigue, what it actually does to a person who has to keep showing up for the people they love, even when they're running literally on empty. We'll unpack how identity gets buried under the weight of caregiving, how God reframes purpose in the middle of crisis, and practical ways to support a caregiver both during the storm and in the quiet, disorienting aftermath, whether their loved one survives or doesn't. If you've ever felt like caregiving stole your sense of self, then this one is for you. Let's get into it. If you're done running on empty, surviving shift to shift, and feeling life fatigue, then you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Shan Wright, registered nurse, holistic life coach, and mom of four who found her way through burnout and anxiety to peace and purpose with faith-based practices and God's design for whole person wellness. Here, I help nurses like you recover from burnout, regulate your nervous system, reconnect with God, and discover your identity beyond the badge. Are you ready to start caring for you the way you care for everyone else? I am. Go reheat that coffee again, and let's beat burnout together. All right, I have an incredible human to welcome on the show right now. I'm so excited for y'all to meet Lisa Carriere. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Shan. I'm so excited to be on the show with you today.
Yes, I am excited for this conversation. Before we dive into the topic at hand, I want you to give our listeners a moment of who you are. And I know that's a very deep question, but you've been in ministry, higher education, you've walked through some intense and heavy caregiving. And so can you just introduce yourself a little bit and give us a picture into who you are?
Definitely. Well, just let me know, listeners, I'm so excited to be here with you and to talk with you about a different side of caregiving today, because my caregiving was always with students or in ministry. So I was really focused on spiritual care as well as emotional care. And what I found is that the nursing side of things, or caregiving side, as I oftentimes talk about it and will throughout the podcast, caregiving is really physically demanding, but there's some other demands that go along with it. And I've learned a lot about it in the last 5 years as I've had 3 family members very close to me become ill. And one is living. My husband's still living. So I'm very grateful to the Lord for that.
Yeah. I'm excited to dive into this side of caregiving with you. As nurses, we obviously experience caregiving on another level because we're assigned our patients, or we're assigned the people that we're supposed to care for. And although we pour our heart and souls into that, it just hits different when it's your family and it's someone close. And I do talk a lot on the podcast about how we caregive in nursing, and then we come home to be caregivers in our home, no matter what's going on, whether our children are sick with a cold or whether they have an injury or something like that. But we're just caregiving constantly. But it's different when you have multiple family members at once and what that actually looks like. So can you, and we just want to be real here and like share all the insides and outsides, because we do it without even realizing how it's affecting us. And so can you walk us through what that season actually looked like?
I think what you're raising, Shan, is such an important difference here because as a nurse, you're assigned patients. So you're expecting to go in every single day, have a new care load or have a similar care load to what you had the previous day. And so while those patients may be doing better or they may be doing worse than the day before, there's a fairly consistent rhythm. And I think with caregiving for a loved one, it comes on incredibly suddenly and it comes on in the midst of the rest of your life. So you have your work, you have your own family to care for. There are so many different complexities that all of a sudden now you're involved in a very urgent situation though. And so you're trying to navigate, how do you make your way through all of that? In my situation, my mother was involved in a house fire. She was unresponsive after that. My childhood home almost burned, and my father was close to death. So that could have been an incredibly difficult hardship. Fortunately, my dad did very well throughout this entire time. He was displaced because the house was burned. But the real issue was, what do we do for my mother? And so fortunately, mom was the kind of person who had all of her ducks in a row. I mean, she had sent me her POA form a long time ago. I knew what her wishes were. And so those kind of medical and legal ramifications were rather addressed for me. However, the complexity was, we had just moved. So we had vacated our house. We also were displaced. And my family was really, honestly, really struggling with this. And so we had decided to go visit some other family and friends. We were all the way in South Carolina. Family, my parents were back in Illinois. So there were complexities of distance. And then also the fact that we also did not have a home to return to. Fast forward a year, and my brother was informed in the hospital that he had a very aggressive form of brain cancer. It's called glioblastoma. And with that kind of brain cancer, you're told right up front, your life expectancy is very short. Just taking that in. And honestly, Shan, I rejected the whole diagnosis at first. I couldn't believe it. I thought for sure it must be something else. So my brother had brain surgery. He had chemo, radiation, the whole 9 yards, and continued to steadily decline. He passed away in August of 2024. A few months after that, my husband got sick. We were informed that he had pancreatic cancer. So all last year, I was spent in another hospital. And so, walking that road with him through chemo just on a constant basis was another thing. So I know one big thing that we need to talk about today is the whole idea of compassion fatigue, because I know that I've dealt with that. And I know that a lot of your listeners have dealt with that as well. I didn't even know what it was until you brought it up. And I'm so grateful for your discernment into that.
Yes. You've suffered a lot of loss in a very short amount of time. And I want to point out one word that you said was sudden. Like, this type of caregiving is sudden, and it's dramatic because of the time frame that it comes in. It hits heavier when it's all at once like this. No one should have to deal with any of these just because we live in a broken world. We do, but all at once, it's how can a human being's mind, body, and spirit handle the weight of all these caregiving roles at once in the middle of your life that's already full, because we live full lives. We have jobs, we have families, and a lot of these were your family members. And so there's that weight of providing, and there's that weight of providing care, and then your own care to your own body, self-care, if you will. So yes, compassion fatigue is a big thing that we experience as nurses. I experienced it very early on in my nursing career. And I do talk about that on another episode. I'm not sure the number, but it's all about the fatigues. We have 3 different fatigues that we mostly experience as nurses. But for you, let's talk more in detail about that compassion fatigue. Can you tell us about what was happening inside your body, your mind, emotionally, physically, spiritually? What were you feeling?
Yeah, and I want to give some hope to your listeners too. I mean, there are good ways to cope with this and there are poor ways to cope with it.
Right.
And I have to say that if I've learned anything from compounded loss, it is how better to care for myself. And that's super important, because without caring for myself, without putting on that mask in the airplane when there's no air available, how do you care for others? But let me start with my mother's situation. One thing was to make sure that my family had a soft spot to land, because here we are. We're displaced. My father's displaced. We're trying to deal with this situation, which was acute with my mother. Finding someplace for us to land, that was paramount. I had to bring everybody back from South Carolina, get us someplace to live, and then figure out funeral arrangements. So that took time, obviously. The other thing was my cousin took in my father. So that was another weight that was lifted. But then also just realizing that when there is a house fire, everything is taken out of your house. They also take away all of your electronics because they just assume that those electronics are no longer operable, or they could harbor things that would be dangerous for you. So forget it. All your stuff is gone one way or another.
Yeah.
So that was huge. My mother was in the hospital for weeks, and then she did recover slightly. We moved her out to a caregiving facility, but because of the fact that there was a house fire, we didn't have one shred of clothing for her. So there's also that kind of process to go through. That situation, mentally speaking, I just had this sense of complete and total overwhelm. You know, it was a whole host of details that were confronting me. And I don't think I realized before, Shan, in a medical situation, when you're the POA, so you have power of attorney, you are dealing with many more details than medical details. You're dealing with legal details, financial details, and the emotions of everybody in the family surrounding this situation. So there's so many things that I guess an eldest daughter like me thinks I have to manage.
Yeah.
And, you know, at a certain point you go, I give up. I can't manage it. Along with that, the patient is failing or getting better. So there's a lot of change all the time. And so I think for me at that situation, I just felt like I can't do this. I'm going to give up because I just can only handle what's in front of me. And so I think that was a very difficult time for my family to just realize that I had gotten to that place. Fast forward, not too long after that with my brother, I felt like I handled things better. They weren't so acute, obviously, because we had the situation in front of us, but we also realized that so many different factors were pointing us to pursue surgery right away. And I'd learned from the situation with my mother that I needed to ask more questions. And so asking whether or not surgery was needed right away, it didn't matter who we had as a surgeon, whoever was on call, should we pursue this right away? I realized that no, we were going to wait for a much more qualified individual. And so we went about that process a little bit differently. Being able to have time when you're dealing with an acute medical situation is such a gift. And then with my husband, that situation was similar as well. We even had more time. I mean, not a ton, but we did have more time to say which kind of oncology practice was he the most comfortable with, which one was close enough, because obviously we were going, once a week. And how was I going to handle my business on top of all these things? Because that is in itself a stressful process to be able to wear all those hats for your own business. With each situation, I felt like I was able to manage life better for myself. With this last one with my husband, an interesting phenomenon came about. I realized that as I was going to doctor appointments with him, for the most part, I was ignored because he was the star, right? He was the person who needed care. And that was all well and good. I was fine with being ignored, but I did realize this. I needed my own care team. And so I want to explain that principle a lot more.
Yes.
Our small group at church has been just amazing for us. They've been so supportive because the problem is with an oncology patient, you don't feel the same way every day and you don't feel the same way every week. You're going through chemo, you're going through a bunch of different emotional factors. And as a result, you need different care and you need different food. And so when people would say, hey, can I cook you something? And I would be like, well, we're going to be at the hospital. I don't know where I'm going to be. I don't know if I can pick it up. Sometimes that didn't work out so well. But when people would say, I want to make sure that you're eating, then I would say things like, okay, could you send me a DoorDash code? So when I'm hungry, I can make use of that. Or if I'm hungry for, I don't know, a smoothie or something, just nothing that was too hard to digest. And my husband felt the same way. We could make use of that. That was super helpful. But sometimes people would just stop over with food. They'd leave it on my doorstep because they'd say, even if your husband can't eat, I know that you need to. And so that was really helpful too. Just not having to think through the details, just realizing, you know what? They packed it in ice. It's going to be fine. I'll have something if I am hungry.
Yeah.
So all of that was really helpful. The prayer was so helpful. We received so many cards, so many small gifts, just letting us know that people were thinking about us. And I told people, you are my care team. Shout out to them for just being willing to not let me slip from their thoughts, not letting my husband slip from their thoughts. We just had so much love. And that to me was the most helpful.
Yeah, that's so good. I love this concept of your own care team because you're so right. Like the patient is the star, but no one's asking you when you go into those appointments once a week, oh, and Lisa, how are you? And really sitting there and waiting for the answer. I remember like in seasons of burnout when I was asked by someone who I knew was really asking and they would just ask me, how are you doing? It just brought me to tears. I'm like, wait, you really want to know the answer? You're really asking because it doesn't get asked. When you are the caregiver, it doesn't get asked. And I love that you had people around you supporting. Now, you mentioned a few things, food and prayer and support. Can you describe more of what other things they provided for you? What else did you need at the time as a caregiver that was completely overwhelmed and needing care? What other types of care did you need?
There were also a number of others who helped from afar. And I faced that question that you're talking about from friends who just really would not let that question go. And I was the same way, Shan. Sometimes that question would just bring me to tears. I wouldn't know how to answer it. Or I'd say to them, do you really want to know?
Right. It might take a while.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be a long conversation because I don't just want to tell you I'm doing really badly. And then you're going to say something like, what's going on? So there was that as well. One thing that I really appreciated was that our small group is made up of mostly retired people. And so sometimes I just couldn't help my husband with a routine appointment. I couldn't be there. Or maybe I just needed a little getaway. And so I had friends who would sometimes say, look, we're going to go here. It was 2 hours away. I was like, okay, that'll work because I know that I can get back home pretty quickly if something goes wrong. So I had a lot of those little escapes. And I had friends who said to me, basically, I'm on call, Lisa. If Jason needs anything, I'm right there for him. I needed that. I also needed strong people. So that's one thing to care for people through food or letters or cards or texts, all of that. That's so needed. But I also needed to know, look, I've got people with a strong back who could lift my husband if he falls or who could take him somewhere and I know they could get him in a wheelchair. So there's things like that as well that I needed to know, yes, I have this. I know one time I was helping to care for my brother, and he was a bigger guy. He was probably a 2 or 3 person lift. And we went over because he didn't have any balance. I lost my balance in the process, and we went over, and it could have been pretty bad for us both.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it wasn't. But just knowing that you have those kind of strong
Yeah.
people, or even people with a medical background, that is so, so helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But then it brings up another question in my head. So, as on this podcast, we are caregivers, but I want to encourage, how do you care for yourself? How do you take care of you? Because only to take care of some of the things in your life, you're the only one that can do it. So, because no one can, you're mentioning all these amazing supportive things that your small group did and other friends, but no one can sleep for you. No one can move your body for you. No one can build up your muscles so that you're able to physically care for a male like you can. No one can eat for you. They can give you food, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So how did you care for yourself during this time, especially in the compassion fatigue, especially in the decision fatigue? You were actually in a state of probably at times high functioning fatigue because you had to. There's people that needed you, so you had to function at a higher level. You're putting your body under constant stress. How did you care for yourself when it seemed like there's probably no time to care for me?
Mm-hmm. That's so great. I love that. Okay. The whole principle of exercise is typically that you push yourself, right? So there's a stress related to the fact that you're exercising in order to get stronger and stronger. Well, I had to do away with all that, Shannon. Typically, I do Pilates, I'll do yoga, I'll do some weight training, and all of that went by the wayside because here I am, I'm sitting for long hours, I'm stressed. If you've ever been in a chemotherapy ward, I know you probably have.
I was a cancer nurse.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There's smells, there are noises, there's a lot of things that stress a person out.
Very stimulating. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. And so I found that I needed to walk. In fact, rain or shine, I was outside with an umbrella and I was walking.
Yeah.
And it was amazing what that fresh air did for me. I would pray and walk. And honestly, sometimes I would just talk to myself in my head because it was a reminder of, you know what? I'm still here. I have a life. Somehow that life is important. My life is not wrapped up around my caregiving or my nursing. It's actually something that has value in and of itself. And so I think that the walking really helped, and just telling myself that's my exercise for now. I really believe a lot in fresh air, sunshine if you can get it because of vitamin D, right? So it's all of those kind of things that really helped me out a lot. And because you're right. I mean, throughout this whole period of time, I would wake up in the middle of the night and cry, or I would wake up in the morning and cry. And then I'd tell myself, that's enough crying for today. I'm going to start on my day. Because you don't have that much time to kind of just sit in that. With the walking, I deliberately had an office that was on a walking path. I didn't know I was going to need it in this regard, but I did. And so I used that walking path a lot. The truth that came out of that, this whole idea that I'm still living, I have a life, is precious to God. What does that say about me? And so once I started to realize that I had become so wrapped up in my caregiving that I had lost my own identity, that's when I started to realize, no, God wants to talk to me about who I am. And maybe that doesn't change anything that I'm doing right now. Maybe it doesn't change all the doctor visits, and maybe it doesn't change the fact that I can't eat tonight because I'm just too stressed. Or at one point in time, I was suffering extreme anxiety. I didn't know what it was. I went to the emergency room myself. So it's things like that where I had to go, okay, what's my identity? What can I do? How am I important? Because, here I am. I'm ending up at my husband's doctor appointment. I'm having heart palpitations. I'm worried I'm going to have a heart attack or something close to that. And I'm telling everybody, I think I need to go to the hospital. So it's that kind of thing where you realize if I don't deal with this, I am going to be completely dysfunctional as a caregiver, for one, but then also, where is my identity going to end up? Am I just going to feel like, I mean, at times I felt this way, that I was just a dry husk of a person. I had nothing left to give. And out of that came that realization, I'm really suffering from compassion fatigue, which led into all those other symptoms I just described.
Yeah. Oof. I love that you've gone here. Identity. It is what I talk about a lot. It is the first main out of 4 quarters of my program and my method. It is the first quarter because I think it is the foundation. I think it's the most important. And I think as nurses, healthcare professionals, even caregivers in general, we take on that identity of that role as our own. We take it on as a badge of honor, because you are doing a lot of good, honorable work. Like, you should be rewarded for that. Like, you need to scream it. I am a caregiver because I am taking care of this family and this family. And I need a little praise for that. I get blessing for that. Right. But then also as a professional, we went a lot of schooling for that. And we want to say, this is who I am, but that's not who God says you are. And I just love that you're saying my life is precious too. I'm caring for this other life because it's very precious to me and to God. And I know that, but I need to recognize how important I am too in this scenario. And God didn't give me this scenario in my life to wear as my identity. I am, in the terms of identity, I am not a caregiver. That's not who I am. That's what I'm doing in this season. And that's the only way I can do it. Actually, the only way I can truly do it to honor God in it and to steward it to His glory is to do it from my true identity and to do it from who I really am. And so we talked about this on a separate call, just you and I privately. You said that question kind of really shook you in that moment of, who am I? I had asked you, who are you? And I wanted you to really answer it from the deepest place that you knew. So after this season of caregiving and realizing that you needed to care for yourself and it needed to come from a place of true identity, not this role of a caregiver, how would you answer that question now?
Well, Shan, you really helped me out a lot. So I want to frame this for your listener too, because this was such an epiphany. And I think your listener who knows? Who knows what you're going to have on this podcast or who's listening? So I knew Shan from before. I contacted her as a holistic coach. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget that call because I came on it. We started talking about some things. And all of a sudden, here I am. I'm spilling all this caregiving stuff that's happened to me in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget your face because you paused. Instead of just rushing in with, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, man, what a heavy load, all the other comments that I've gotten in the past. And your pause was poignant. And all of a sudden I thought to myself, what did I just say? And then you asked me that question, mm-hmm. Who are you? And it was almost like, just God started speaking to me because you didn't let up. It's not like you asked that and then you just kind of went, okay, let's go on to something else. You asked it and then you said, we're going to pray and we're going to wait for an answer. Mm-hmm. So I had no ability to just say, oh, let's just push that aside and let's go on to something else.
Nope.
And I'll never forget the answer that I got through prayer. Just, it came right away. It wasn't like I was waiting. And he said, you're precious, Lisa. Mm-hmm. And that was pivotal for me because I thought to myself, why am I precious? And here's the difference, Shan. I was treating everybody else in my life like they were precious.
Right.
And they were.
Yeah.
But the problem is I didn't take on that identity myself. Mm-hmm. In Isaiah 43, God says, you are precious and honored in my sight. And I love you. I give peoples in exchange for your life. And I thought to myself, I'm giving up my life to care for others. But like you said, who's caring for me? And the answer was God's caring for me.
Yeah.
And he has a perfect plan for me, not just what I do for other people. And so understanding that identity was so key for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I realized my own life is precious to him. And I have a purpose too. And I think that got lost. It got lost within all the caregiving experiences, all the losses. And so I think your listeners may need to think about that one too.
Yeah, that's good. Like I said, I do like to start there, and I really don't let up because it's what changed my life. It's what brought me into what I'm doing today. When we understand just a tiny bit, because we really can't understand we're each defined as a masterpiece. God said, you are a masterpiece made by me, the creator. And I don't think we can fully know all that there is to us. We are complex and fearfully and wonderfully made. I can't comprehend all the things about me. And even the human body, just like the anatomy and science and physiologically, I can't even understand all of that, let alone the nuances of emotions and heart postures and all the deep parts of the soul. Like we can't understand all of it, but God knows it. He made us. And so to understand just the basic of you're precious. And then he's called me several different identities that I come into a day with. How do I be that today? Because I don't know fully what that means. I don't think we fully will know our whole identity until we go to glory, but we walk in the identity that he's given us bit by bit, what we do know. And we ask him, now what do we do with this identity? How do your being informs your doing. So how do I, now that I know a little bit about my being, what do I do today? Because I have a lot to do. I have so many people to care for. I have this sick family member to care for. I have this job to provide for our family in this time of need. How do I do that? But then you ask the question based on my being. So being your precious being, how do I be precious in this day that is full with appointments and schedules and meetings and maybe my husband's having a bad day and he doesn't feel good today. How do I be precious today to do what you've called me to do and to steward it all to your glory? And I think it's just a daily question that we need to check every morning and just have that conversation with God every day. Today, Lord, I rejoice in this day because it is your day. Today is the day that you have made. Now, how do I be today? And what do I do? How do I do today? Definitely loved that conversation with you. And I'm glad it definitely stayed with you. That was the point. So I'm glad that God spoke to you through that. So, okay. We've got to wrap this up. You have given so many good things for our listener to take away as how to caregive in an overwhelming and season of fatigue. But is there anything else, something you want to leave with this nurse, caregiver, listener, how to be a caregiver when it comes on sudden in acute situations, it comes on all at once, it comes on really, really heavy. How do you do it? And how do you do it well?
That's such a great question. I think that in some ways, you have to give yourself so much grace when it comes on suddenly. Maybe it's an illness, but maybe it's an accident and it's life-threatening or it's fatal. So because of that, you need to give yourself a whole lot of grace. And many times the truth in a situation is not apparent right away. That was the case in my mother's situation. All we knew was that the house had burned, she had almost died, all these horrible things happened, people didn't know if she was alive. So you're responding to things that may not be factual. and the truth will eventually come out. But all you have in front of you is a certain set of facts that you're responding to, right? So there's that. And so giving yourself grace, I think, is very important. I want to switch to what happens later on, because I think what happens later on, if your loved one has passed or if your loved one is living, but obviously living a different life, right? You can't go through cancer treatment and expect to be the same strong person who you were before. So
Right.
I found that after the fact is also really important.
Yeah.
Understanding the situation in all of its complexity. That's part of the truth. But then the other part of that is the grace, and realizing that you can surrender to God what you were able to do in the situation and what you were not able to do in the situation. I mean, there were times that I traveled for hours to come to see my mother, and she did not want to see anyone, or she was sleeping and they said, don't bother her. So realizing sometimes there's going to be things that you want to do, but other situations will impede you from doing them. And so being able to surrender those things and say, Lord, I give you that, and I accept that those things were the way in which they were. That was my problem. I felt so helpless so many times. So being able to give that to the Lord was one thing. And then also along with that, surrendering your future. So in some ways, you have to surrender the past and what happened, right? The caregiving you were able to give versus the caregiving you were not able to give. But then also, I think surrendering your future is very important, because now I have a different identity.
Yeah.
My father's still alive. I'm very grateful for that. But I don't have a mother. And in many ways, she was such a bedrock of our family. I don't have my sibling. He was my only sibling. So now I'm dealing with many more details today, as well as in the future, than I would have had to deal with if he was alive. And I miss him. I mean, holidays are completely different now.
Yeah.
So, those kind of visits, those kind of celebrations, they're completely different. What does that look like moving forward? I don't know quite yet. I'll be honest with you. But then also dealing with a future where my husband's health is still uncertain. I've had to give that to the Lord too, and say, Lord, despite the fact that it's uncertain, I will trust in you. I know that he holds my future as well as holding my past. He understands all the complexities that we were dealing with in every single moment of these caregiving journeys. And he gives me the grace that I need in order to deal with all of those difficult emotional experiences too.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Is that what you define as the aftercare for the caregiver?
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Definitely.
And even the during, like the surrender and the grace. I love what you said about the caregiver that you weren't able to be, because us nurses know, as high achievers, and even I call myself a recovering perfectionist, if you get things wrong, it could mean life and death. And so, but when it's your family member also that you're caring for, you want to get it all right. You want it to be perfect. But you have to give yourself grace that you are not a perfect human being. So you can't get it all perfect. So if you end up saying something that upsets them, or you end up, giving them a meal that was not what their stomach wanted that day, or you just aren't able to emotionally have the energy to handle their situation that day, to give yourself grace for, you are not superwoman, man. You are not perfect. And no, God didn't call you to be the perfect caregiver. Remember, he gave you another identity. And so you have to find out what that is, because he didn't call you a perfect caregiver. And I had to struggle with that a lot. Like, how do I be the perfect mom? Because God gave me these kids and I want to be the best mom to them. How do I do that? He's like, you don't. Like, he was like, Jan, you need to stop. You don't. Like, it was a pretty comical prayer time with God about that, because It's like, you can't. You can't. And so I love that you said that, just giving yourself something that stuck with me from a hospital chaplain. And I have a podcast episode with her. I also don't know what number that is, but she has said that all change contains grief. So every time there is change, there is a loss. And every time there's loss, there's grief. And it can be good change, bad change. But you encountered so much loss and grief during these 5 years and so much change. Like you were saying, some of the details of the moving and just the details and the decisions that had to be made. It was so much change. So even if some of it, may have been positive, it still required some grieving. And when we don't have the time and capacity to grieve, then what do we do? And so I like that you're really emphasizing these care points for the caregiver.
I like your idea of aftercare. We all have experienced times of aftercare with surgery or other procedures. We know that aftercare is super important. We could have the best surgeon in the world, but if we don't have good aftercare, then we may not flourish.
Yeah.
And so that whole idea that, yes, you can take that time is super important. I mentioned some things that some friends did for me. They'd whisk me away for a concert or for an overnight somewhere. That was so wonderful. Those little times to just say, oh yeah, I'm not just this caregiver. I'm not just this whatever, I can have times where I just enjoy myself.
Yeah.
That's been really helpful. But then also just after everything's been done with my husband, and he's still recovering, but he's getting a lot stronger. I've been able to go out with friends and do more. And so that also has been a part of aftercare for me, just reminding me the fact that I have a life, I'm moving forward, there's progress for me. And so seeing those times as great, like everybody's like, oh, that's so cool that you get to go away or you get to go to this place or see that. Yes, but it's also a way to care for myself and remind myself that I am well worth caring for.
Yes, that you are worthy of this overnight and not to have any guilt or shame that you are enjoying it. I forgot an important point of what that hospital chaplain, it's Christine Davies, said. She said, when you have this cumulative grief and these compounding grief moments every day, all day long, because of all the change, you need to double down on joy. So how do you do that? And like, you're just saying these things that I'm sure brought you joy. You said you enjoy them. So they brought you joy. But I like to recommend creating a list on your phone of, I call it a joy list, and just things that bring you joy personally. It could be flowers and someone else is like, flowers don't do it for me, but flowers. So it's like, okay, get yourself some fresh flowers every day. Or, when you're in these seasons of grief or just this loss, you are in the midst of caregiving heavy, make sure you're looking at your joy list, because you're not going to think of those things and automatically instill them in your life. You're going to need some friends to whisk you away. Like you said, you're going to need some support of like, remember, double down on joy. It's like, it's not going to be the first thing you think of. You're like, I want joy, but there's nothing right now. And so look at your list and be like, oh, it comes from walking my dog. Okay, I'm going to walk my dog 5 times today. Like, something like that.
I love that, Shan. And I would completely concur. It is so important to pursue joy. And, I was able to, like you said, walk my dog or take a walk every day. That was really joy-filled time for me, reminding myself of prayer times. I would have my prayer time in the morning, but then also during my walk, I had my prayer time.
Yeah.
Just that time to be with the Lord, to give him all of my concerns that had already risen in the last few hours. And yes, I needed that regular time to do that. I think it's really important. And another thing I want to bring up for your listeners is get out of your own box. it was surprising to me when I have ministered to others, and I'll just interject this small example. I once had a student, this was during COVID, where she had 13 family members who had died as a result of COVID, the complications, the restrictions. I mean, there were a whole host of different things that had happened. And she was struggling. And I'll never forget, she actually called me. This is precious. She was getting her hair done. And of course, in probably, I would say in a white community, that's a good thing. But in the Black community, that is so important for identity.
Yeah.
And this is the first time she had gotten her hair done in months. And she was ecstatic. You could see the joy all over her face. And she said, "Mrs. C, I just want to let you know, my friend had just contacted me and said, I'm going to take you skiing in Vail." And I was like, that's a pretty sizable gift. And she said, "I know, and I've never been skiing before." And I think what it did was remind her, A, she was worthy of that kind of attention. And B, you know what? Life is not over.
Mm-hmm.
It's not over because even as, a middle-aged woman who's never been skiing before, we're just going to try something different. Yeah. And I know for me, that was really important as well in pursuing joy. Let's go try something new.
Yeah.
Something you've never done before.
Yeah.
And there's something about the focus of trying something new and then being able to say, like looking back and saying, I did that. Maybe I didn't do it well. It's not like somebody looking at it would go, wow, she did that so incredibly well, but I did it. And so that whole idea that I can try something new and it will go well, and I can do it with these friends who love me, that was very powerful for me too.
Yes, I think it's good that that student was able to share that with you, because I think, again, we're sometimes have to be forced to do these things, but it is so good to do things that are outside your comfort zone when you are in, it just gets your mind, when you're in a hard spot, it gets your mind into a different focus. It changes your mindset and you're not swirling and overthinking and analyzing and just in decision fatigue over your situation. You actually can step out of that and focus on something else and actually be nervous about something else. It's going to be good for you. It's going to bring up your adrenaline in a good way and your cortisol in a good way. And I think that's definitely something that I relate to when I was in burnout in college. In nursing school, I went to see my counselor for specific test anxiety is what I called it. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "Shan, you kind of have anxiety all over." What I did, I was like one of the first times my eyes were open to what anxiety was. But she said to me, "Let me see your calendar." And I was like, "Yeah, see, I'm like packed. My schedule is packed. I'm even scheduling my showers and when I'm going to eat and all the things." And she was like, "But I don't see any fun on here. And you are in college." And she made me schedule fun on my calendar for the weekend. Now, I would not have done that, but she knew, because anxiety cannot exist in the brain at the same time of gratitude. And when you're in a state of gratitude, you're enjoying life, you're enjoying something, you're being grateful for something. She knew they can't exist in the brain at the same time. So she's like, in order to get you out of your anxiety spiral and your situation right now, and to help you open your eyes to the beauty and the preciousness of life, I need you to have some fun. And as a college student, I didn't understand all that. I was just like, no, I don't have time for fun, but she made me do it. So I think that's really good when we can help our friends, help our caregivers that are in our life, whether it's us or someone else that we know, help them have some fun, have some joy, bring some joy back into their life, force them to go to an overnight or go on a walk, just like, "Hey, I'm in your neighborhood. Let's go for a walk right now." That's going to be so joy giving to them.
I love that. Absolutely. It's too easy for people to tell us, nope, I don't have time for that right now or whatever. But for you to just show up and say, hey, we're going to go take a walk. Okay. Well, someone's probably not going to turn you down, and it might be just what they need at that exact moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, this conversation has been awesome. I know it's going to be so helpful to so many people. Where can we find you? And is there any last little nugget that you want to share with our caregivers?
Well, first of all, where can you find me? So you can find me at lisaacklandcarriere.com. That's where I have my writing and my speaking information in case you want to know more about what I do with spiritual care. That's my ministry. And also, I'm found at thewritingwellconsulting.com. That's my business. And so love to have you show up in both places.
Yeah. So excited. Is there anything last you want to share with our caregivers, or maybe you want to pray for them? Whatever's on your heart right now that God wants you to share.
I love that. Let's go to prayer, Shan.
Awesome.
Dearest Father, thank you so much for showing me that even through these hard times, that my life was precious to you, that you wanted to honor me, even as I was honoring other people in my life. Lord, I pray for these nurses, these caregivers, the people who have such merciful hearts for others. Lord, I pray that they would not forget that you have made them in a precious way, that you want to honor them in relationship with you, and that they can come to you with their caregiving and their nursing experiences, gain strength, gain identity for the day, and then go into their caregiving experiences with a much stronger idea of who they are. Father, I pray that moving forward, that Shan's listeners would gain a lot of strength from her. Lord, I thank you for what you've given to her and how you've opened her eyes to all of the things that caregivers need. So I give that into your hands, Lord Jesus, and we thank you so much. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And we will definitely send the listeners over to your website and put them in the show notes. And it's just been such a joy to have you.
Thanks again, Shan. Blessings on you and on your listeners.
Wasn't that an incredible conversation? Okay, one thing I just wanted to point out is that conversation that her and I had prior to this interview that changed her life, where we talked about identity, is available to you as well. I actually did this for her on the stress assessment call because she was talking about all her stress and I really wanted to know, who are you? Well, that conversation broke everything open for her. So you can have your own complimentary stress assessment. Just go to my website. You'll see it right there, www.theshanwright.com. And it's also in the show notes for quick and easy access. Just go right now to the show notes, click stress assessment, and let's have a conversation together. I pray that blessed you, and it would bless me big if you would share the show with a friend or write a review. It will only take a few minutes, and it's the best way for people to find the show too. I would love to connect over on Instagram at @theshanwright, or you can email me hello@theshanwright.com. And until next time, may the Lord's face shine upon you and give you peace. Shalom.